August 25th, there will be a quorum. We call the monthly meeting to order. First item is public input. I see no one from the public here at the moment, so we'll go right to minutes. Entertain a motion for approval of the policy committee meeting of 7/20.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any comments, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Negative? No, it is approved, unanimous. The next one is a board meeting of 7/28.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
I'm abstaining from voting because I was not here.
Same
Okay.
thing here. Same thing here.
Okay.
Not gonna have enough votes to pass.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have enough votes to pass, and we have from different,
Enough for minutes.
then we're all set. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any negative? No, it is unanimous. Thank you all. Executive Director's report.
Okay, good evening, everybody. With respect to the pipeline project, phase 1, just the remaining work to be done is the final paving of the state roadways. We need to get a schedule from CB Utility on that before we start getting some complaints. Phase 2, due to some favorable meetings that we had, I reported on with DOT and the railroad. Beta Group finally has some direction to know where to go with respect to the new alignment, and they can move forward with survey and design. What that means actually though is they can put together the additional costs it's going to require for the survey and design. And like that, we just received a draft that we are reviewing.
With the reference to the cost, was
Yep.
that's for this initial 100% design that we can get to right now?
Yeah, well, it's because we have a new route, right? So they
Right.
have to resurvey those new sections, and then
What was the original thought for the cost of for phase 1, phase 2?
phase 2 in total,
Yeah, well,
1.5 million.
okay, and so we're gonna get a kick on that for the redesigns that we're doing, correct?
They're going to be looking for an amendment to add.
So, but some, I thought it's shorter since we started this.
Yeah.
Well,
But they gotta do this.
well, it's shorter for construction wise, but it's a new length of design work.
Oh, yeah, because you have to go over the.
Because they have to go over the bridge.
railroad.
And we're staying on Pawtucket Avenue and not going within one of the city streets.
Gotcha.
Save the long run? We should save it in the long run because it's 2,000 feet less than pipe.
That was gonna be my next question, because obviously the escalation through where the world is going right now.
Yes.
Are we gonna ask somebody get a rough idea of where we'll be, even if it is 2,000 feet shorter or whatever? You know, we borrowed how much to plan for this? 10 million?
Well, we've been stocking up.
Right, but we've been stuck.
We haven't borrowed anything for the construction right now, no. We're just for the design work.
So we still have to go and do the bond.
Correct.
But right now, we're very high on the queue for the federal money. That's being, for all the projects.
Alan,
I mean, I can tell you in all honesty, between design and permitting, I mean, we're still a ways away before putting a shovel on the ground.
Okay.
Okay,
What's a ways away?
I would say a couple of years.
well, we have to keep moving.
Yep.
No, I agree.
Step by step.
Steve, I had a question about the demolition of the water plant, which I think is the next item you're going to speak to.
Yep.
What are we going to do with that property once that's demolished?
We're looking at possibly building a new garage on the site and just reconfigure the yard.
Do we
At
need
this
a new
point.
garage?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, the garage
We're gonna
wasn't
need,
part of the
we're gonna
water
need new
plant.
storage, and we need, the garage that they're working on right now is really, insufficient. So, but we would plan on still keeping that building, for, storage or whatever, but also have another building that they can do their work in.
So what occurs to me is it useful at all to think about adapting that building and adding a garage to it as opposed to demolishing it and building a new garage?
No, we're not going to demolish the garage that we use now.
No, I mean,
But the plant itself is really not adaptable for
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
I think we
just
talked
the
about
way
it a
it's-
couple of years ago.
It's
just the way it's configured. You walk in and then it drops right down
Right.
like
Yeah.
another level.
It's bizarre.
Yes, years ago.
Right.
Okay. That was my only question.
And when we do the demo, we're gonna first just demo the tanks and the yard piping. And that gives us an opportunity then to kind of relocate a lot of, some of the things that we still use for cold storage in the existing structures, to move them out. We're gonna need to buy some, or lease some Connex boxes and things of that nature before we demo the plant. And I still get calls every now and again from the town wondering what's doing with the plant, so I don't know if they still have an interest in it.
But the fellow who was so interested in it, he's disappeared.
He has not disappeared. no.
Historical.
He has not disappeared, no. In fact, he's trying to get a meeting together with the town to try and figure out what they could possibly do with the building.
But he's been in it now.
He's been in it.
Yeah, okay.
But are they talking about us maintaining it? Or
No.
just coming up with an idea what to do with it if they
Right.
save it?
Yeah. Okay, where are we? Dam removal projects, still in permitting. Part continues to go back and forth with DEM wetlands. There are a number of issues. They finally heard from the U.S. Army Corps. So we've had some response back to them. And still have not heard back from CRMC. And it's part of understanding they're waiting to hear from all the other agencies, get they're satisfied before they can, before they go into act. But meanwhile, DOT has commenced work on construction, as you know, the detour up there, the road's closed on Schoolhouse Road, which is a key component to us reaching the upper dam. And that water, there's no water there in that reservoir. It's amazing. I don't know how this area survived on that reservoir for so long.
There's 7 inches of rain to go with the other day.
There it is.
That didn't come down here yet?
No, it didn't do much there.
Holy man.
But apparently it's happening in a lot of places. My understanding is the Danube River, people take river cruises, that they've had to take people off of the boats and put them on a bus because the number of people on the boat, it's not deep enough, it drags on the bottom of the Danube.
It's a river walk now.
Yeah.
It's a new definition of walking on water.
Meter changeouts continue, up over 98%. Continue to plug away at that. Providence water purchases, we had a very high July, not unexpected, just because it was so dry. Look at the graph here, compared to the last July, which was one of the wettest on records, compared to one of the driest on records. So, you should be able to see that in the financials going forward. Then with respect to the drought, we put together a drought informational notice. An article was well written on the topic. I also attended the drought steering committee meeting. And really it has a significant impact on agriculture of the state and also the water suppliers in the southern part of the state. are having a difficult time. They all have mandatory water bans down in South Kingstown and North Kingstown area. However, the water suppliers here, Providence, Pawtucket, well, it's par for the course. We're having a pretty normal year. The reservoirs with just about 82% capacity, just what they would normally see at this time of year. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Mike, you're up.
Not too much else to add. We made the picture here. There's actually some equipment that came in with the pump station, but unfortunately some other equipment is still delayed. We don't have good timelines yet on some of this stuff, so the project is unfortunately still coming together slowly.
You said winter 2023?
For some of the components. Yeah, it's very vague at this point. The electric, that's some of the electrical components, and yes, it's between one device is maybe January 2023, another one is dated maybe March 2023.
Wow.
We hope those are just really conservative estimates from the suppliers, but that's what they're willing to put in writing.
What's the situation with the louvers on the side of the building?
Supposedly, they are ready to ship. That's all. And yes, so that's holding up the siding and getting the building weatherproof. This is just what's happening almost with every single component. The suppliers are just getting pulled in so many different directions. We know the pumps have been made. They've been tested, but we don't know where they are in the process other than that. So that's, I mean, it's really coming down to almost every single component. But we're pushing the contractor to put together a timeline as best as possible with the information he has. But it is dynamic. I mean, we've had the generator pushed out twice now. We just got a 20-week lead time on a valve. It's really, it's hard. And that's impacting, this project, it's impacting the whole industry. Hydrants are 6 to 9 months. Pipe is almost similar. So it's interesting. It's going to be a challenge for the next few years. They're not going to be able to keep up or catch up.
What do you think the main cause of that is? I mean, is it just a huge backlog or just tough to get the raw materials? Or?
I don't know. I heard one supplier's take on it the other day where people delayed projects. So I don't know if that was a really widespread issue, and now all of a sudden everybody's trying to go forward with things they delayed in COVID. And then you had all the COVID related impacts. That transition from material impacts to labor impacts, transportation impacts. I mean, it doesn't stop. Lumber impacts, it's all these little things that impact other things have been occurring.
Well, the inventory is not available for lack of it. It's also gotten much more expensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your budget look like right now, forecast, if you look for that? You still have guys working there daily, and
Right now, we haven't seen any major escalations. We're working on one stormwater escalation, and that's based on input from the town. That's something we didn't anticipate, but we're trying to meet their requirements based on the redevelopment of the site. But it should be minimal. The final design is almost in the contractor's hands, so we can get a cost to it. But the project itself, everything that was designed, we're still on target. We haven't been hit with major material escalations at this point.
The water quality monitoring units that I mentioned, you have a photograph of that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what they monitor and how that works?
Sure. So these are, we actually ordered 2 of these And these are items we thought would be long lead items. A lot of the technology is coming in for the project. So we'll have one of these set up at our main pump station and one of them at the Hope Street pump station. And these are gonna really look at baseline water quality characteristics, and they're gonna trend it long term. And then if they see an event, it's gonna be like an event detection system. So they'll be alarmed, and if we see something that widely varies from the norm, we'll be able to tell that something is awry, for lack of a better term, and we'll respond accordingly. So they'll monitor pH, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, and UV 254.
Do we check for those microscopic elements of plastic that get into water or everywhere? Are we concerned about that at the moment? Or
We are not. So fortunately, in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, we decided to move our reservoirs west, away from industrial development. So a lot of that microplastics actually comes in on the wastewater side, where they start collecting all the contaminants, and it makes it through their treatment processes. So fortunately, we don't see that. And fortunately, we haven't had issues based on where our water supplies are on the PFAS type issues either.
Thank you.
And then the only other thing that, to touch on is we are working with the town on a legal agreement to advance some of the meter collection equipment. It's a little bit of formality, but there was some back and forth, and we hope to have that buttoned up soon, and we can deploy another meter gateway data set.
What is the town-owned property that,
It's at a fire station.
oh,
At the
So there's an existing-
Twisted fire station.
Okay, any other questions? All right,
Sue's out.
Sue's out here. Questions about her report, anyone? Hearing none? Go ahead.
on the miscellaneous projects, you mentioned 2 water main extensions were installed in Bristol in 2022. Were those, how did that come about? Was it the developer came to the authority, did we plan to put water lines in there? Did the people in the area say, hey, we want water service?
Yeah, these were new private developments where they approach us.
Oh,
Yeah, we didn't do the work.
okay. Because I was talking to somebody not too long ago, and they said one side of our street has water service and the other doesn't.
That's strange.
Yeah, that's not,
Well, it could be it was put in and they chose not to connect.
yeah, maybe,
Yeah, but the line is obviously there.
yeah. It's an older area, so, not real old, but, probably 50s, 40s or something like that.
Is it shore road completed down by the bike path?
It is complete, activated. They did some preliminary restoration. We'll really tighten it up once we get out of the hot weather.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Financial report.
All right, let's hop right in at page 4. That's our July versus July information. July 2022 revenue was down a little bit, 3.61% versus the prior June. Again, month to month fluctuates a lot because June, when we looked at June last month, June was actually up versus the prior June. So that'll fluctuate from month to month. I suspect August will be much better. The expenses for the month of July versus last July were pretty much flat, just a little bit lower. The big things that were low were the administrative expenses, which is really because of the decrease in the monthly pension amount that we kick in. Our professional fees were lower, that's just fewer legal bills and engineering costs. And the billing and customer service was also low, and that was $3,500 less postage and $2,000 less billing supplies. The postage, I don't know what that is. That can be, with the annual report or something like that. And then those lower expenses were offset by just an increase in the water purchases for July versus the prior July. Page 5 is our through July. I like these numbers a little bit better. The revenue is slightly lower than last year, 1.61%. You can look, there's a decrease in consumption. This decrease is in line with the decrease in consumption that you end up seeing on pages 7 through 9, those graphs, and a little bit of timing, because as Steve said, July was a really nice month for water purchases, but for us billing, we haven't really hit the big nut of billing until August, so we'll start to see August, September, and October benefit from the really dry July and pretty much August as well. July's numbers, I put an estimate in there for the water we've been purchasing from East Providence. Once we did that little connection, we haven't gotten a bill yet, so I wanted to put a little estimate in there because at first the water purchases looked lower than they should have been. You go to page 6, and that's our through July versus budget. Revenues over budget by 3.87%, which is a good thing. We should start to see this creep up a little bit, like I just said, based on the billings in August, September, and October. We'll start picking up July and August more. We pick up Barrington billing in August, which is for July, so that'll be a big bump up next month. So that should start to go up a little bit. And as Steve said, last July was the second driest on record, and I think this July, the last July was what second was. This July was the second driest on record, so a lot of fluctuation from the end of the year. The expenses are under budget about 5.8%. It's a little bit lower than we saw in June, but it's due in large part to the water from East Providence. There was a little bit of water purchased in June that I didn't estimate at the time, so that got rolled into August. Some of the other things that depreciation and amortization, that's the over budget, that's been over budget for a while, by about $56,000, that's the bond issue cost, that should flatten out a little bit. Professional fees were a little bit lower, as I mentioned so far. The legal fees and consulting charges have been a little lower. A lot of the engineering stuff is probably lower just due to, like when I was talking about some of these projects being pushed and delaying out. Computer expenses was a little bit lower. This is the equipment and software cost area. These could just be timing things. I know Randy's got some stuff in the hopper, probably the next month or so. And operations maintenance expenses under budget by about $57,000, and that was due to a lot of the paving projects that Mike keeps telling me to squirrel some money away for haven't quite come to be yet. Page 7 through 9 is a little graphs with the gallons delivered and dollars billed. And dollars billed is up about 3.52%, while the gallons delivered is down 1.48%. Again, we should see that flip next month. That's really a timing thing. Page 10 is the trust report. Through July, we have a debt service calculation of 5.95, which is down a little bit from June. And the last section is page 11. It's the first month of the pension year. So that shows the pension balance at $3.5 million. It's up. July was probably a pretty decent month, about $205,000 from June 30th report. And the pension guide should be out, not in this next meeting, the meeting after that, to go over the pension, but that's pretty much July in a nutshell.
Any questions? Thank you. Okay. The purchasing policy modification. I think we've gone over this a couple of times.
I think it's all the revisions requested, I think, are in.
So I entertain a motion then to accept this.
So,
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I hear it unanimous. Interest rate on delinquency payments, we were talking between 12 and 18%. So where do we go now?
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I don't know just what transpired, but I'd like to speak just for a minute in opposition to this. I don't see that there's any necessary need for this. I mean, financially, we're not really hurting.
No,
And this is kind of like, to me, nickel diming. I mean, we spend money for overruns on construction and engineering and police protection. I think this is kind of hitting the people the hardest, our customers. And it's the people that are really good and that try to pay their bills. And that's my position. I don't think it's necessary for us at this time to nickel dime these people. I think we've built a great rapport with our customers in the last several years. And I'd hate to see us get in the gutter fighting with them over little nickel dime issues.
understand your point.
You see, I have exactly the opposite view. I don't see it as nickel or diming. I see it as people who are not paying their bills being subsidized by the rest of our customers.
But Gina, it's only minuscule compared to the monies we're paying out for other things.
I think they're
I mean, that's not gonna make or break us.
No, I agree, it won't make us or break us, but I don't think it's fair for most of our customers to pay their bills and a few customers to refuse to pay their bills.
But we only collect about if my math is correct, maybe about 0.03% of our total income needs. And from that viewpoint, it's not even worth worrying about. I agree about sending a message to the delinquent people that
That's
you
all
have
we're
to
doing.
pay up, and it should be, but I don't think the people who are delinquent are going to be phased by 12% versus 18%. And the
Maybe
ones who
they're not.
are the ones who can't afford it, and should be entered into some kind of payment plan or whatever. So I don't really think it does much. And when you look at the split between what water suppliers charge 12% and which ones charge 18%, it seems like there's more that are charging 12% than the numbers that are charging 18%. And if you added the population here, I think it would be more on the 12%. And being an alumni of the Narragansett Bay Commission, I checked to see what they charge, and they charge 12%.
I will join with John and Juan and their perspectives here.
I look at it this way. The fact that we have agreed that we would, because it's a change in the fee or the rate, that we would have a public hearing. I don't think it would be in our best interest to have a public hearing just for this.
I
If
agree.
we're going to do it, my suggestion is put this off until we decide in January to have a public hearing for rate increase, if necessary, and then make a decision at that time if you want to go through with this as part of any rate increase for water. That's the time when you would take care of this as well.
I make a
You
motion
don't have to
to
make
that
a decision
effect.
right now. Just table it.
I make a motion to that effect.
I don't think we need to make a motion.
You haven't got to do anything. You just hold it and do it at the same time that you're going to deal with the rate increase. Okay?
You looking for an approval on the employee handbook?
No, we're holding
This
that off.
item's gonna be deferred.
So it hasn't been reviewed by the committee?
We've had some final edits made, and it's going for one last look over by our labor attorney
So it'll come back
before we
another
bring
time.
it back to the policy committee.
So we're gonna get it again.
Okay.
You're gonna get it again.
I don't know if the towns have have personnel manuals.
They typically do.
They do.
I would think
They didn't have them before. This was the first one that we had in this whole area.
Bristol had a personnel committee and they quit en masse 3 years ago.
Probably.
A committee or a policy?
The personnel committee.
Okay, we're returning a policy in writing, I see.
Yeah, but I mean, but the personnel handbook, we were the first in the area to put one in.
It's a good,
None of the towns had them. So I was gonna say,
It's
when we
really-
finally get it updated, we ought to share it
it's
with the
very good for
towns.
hygiene. Because if you don't have one, you can be sued.
Yeah, yeah.
Corporations have it, and we're closer to corporations, the towns are a little farther removed.
Right.
Can I ask Steve a question? Maybe it has nothing to even do with
Sure.
it. It's related in some way. Do we have a rash of grievances from union ones? I didn't
No,
think
we
so.
haven't had, don't think we've had
We used
any at
to.
all.
We used to, right? I was just curious. Thank you.
It speaks a lot for the.
I think some of the people who initiated those have retired. My memory is correct.
Wow.
Time cures all ills.
Yes.
If you spent the time to review this, thank you. But I can assure you, any of the revisions that come back is not going to be substantial.
Okay. So we won't need to read word by word again?
Correct.
Can you, if they are gonna come back with another one, can they highlight or something?
Yes.
Which things are modified from this one?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this, if that's the case, we could approve this subject to getting a copy of the corrected or updated one at some point in the future if you'd like us to.
No,
No, because you gotta,
no, it'll come back, we'll have it, you should have it for next month.
I think procedurally, I don't know
Okay,
if it goes
that's fine.
the committee to the board, so we'll have to drive the committee back in, do it too.
You're looking for approval of the P&W engineering cost reimbursement?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second. Is the agreement actually with Providence, or was the railroad company?
Yes.
Oh, I thought they changed the name.
They've kept, I did too, one, it's owned by Genesee and Wyoming, but they've kept the Howard's Wizard there.
All right. So, any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'll note that they have in section 3B, a clause in there when payments are not made on time and they charge 6%.
We might want to suggest to them they appreciate it.
I don't think we'll have a public hearing.
Perhaps we should
But
just
not
not
in this-
say
They can start after this contract.
I won't pay the late one, we won't have to wait.
Okay, number 11.
Move to approve the reimbursement to the town of Bristol and an amount now not to exceed $175,000.
Your second?
Second.
Comments, questions? I think this was explained in the past, where we are. All those in favor, please say aye. I hear from everyone, it's passed. Thank you.
Now, I have a question about the roof replacement.
Me too.
Do we have adequate insulation in our roof, or should we take this opportunity to put insulation on top of the roof deck and under the new roof?
Mike, do you know much about that?
We can look into that. Unfortunately, it predates me, but they did do a whole rise energy efficiency improvement to this building. The only thing I know is described as, the snow would melt off the roof, and we've had significant savings in heat since the insulation was done. But it's something we can take a look at. We will be looking at the substrate once we strip it, to make sure once we do rebuild it, it is satisfactory and up to the necessary standards.
Right, well, oftentimes in a building like this, adding some insulation to that substrate can pay you back in 2 or 3 years. Even though you looked at it 10 years ago, energy costs have gone up.
Yep.
Okay.
Look at that again.
When's that expected to start?
So probably not till the spring. It'll go through design and procurement, fall, winter, with spring construction.
What about solar
It
panels?
started soon, we'd know when it was gonna start raining.
What about solar panels? Have we thought about putting a solar panel installation on the roof?
On this roof, we haven't. I don't know if it's historically been looked at. The problem with this roof is square footage. So there's not a lot in the southern exposure because of the type of roof with the 4 pitches. But usually, especially on commercial installations, they're looking for significant square footage. But it's something, once we engage the architect, we can question.
We put solar panels on our home, and the company that we dealt with actually used Google Earth. They have, over a period of time, what our roof exposure is.
Yep.
From the trees, from the sun, from the direction, everything else. So they were able to make an analysis by just looking into the computer, the history of the flyovers and what it looks like.
You could probably get 2 or 3 estimates of people.
Yeah.
And
In today's climate, yes,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people willing to offer that service.
I mean, but there may be more sunlight on it than you suspect. In any event,
Potentially, yes.
Well, the large commercial establishments are usually, somebody's putting that in order to reap the electricity. Here, it would subsidize our cost of heating and cooling.
right.
So it's a simple math calculation. I did it for my roof and decided that the 18-year payback didn't make any sense.
We would have that because you could probably pay for it with cash, and then that speeds up the ROI a little bit when you don't have to worry about paying loan over a period of time because there's that interest component.
I looked at paying 100% of it up front, and the calculation didn't make financial sense, but move to approve.
Well, is this a pressing need in view of shortages and delays in today's environment, or is roofing not part of that supply chain problem?
I don't know. So we have different types of materials. It's not just one singular material. I don't know if all of those components are ready and available. I know certain residential roofing materials, you can go buy them, but we have a mix of flat and pitched roofs on this structure.
My understanding is the delay is only in craftsmen to do it as opposed to materials.
There's no electronics with this either.
Well, some of the lumber prices have gone through the ceiling, so I had no idea about the roofing. So.
They went back down.
That would cause a roofing problem.
Okay, so we have a motion, I'm sorry.
As an engineer, I hate to argue against hiring an engineer, but I noticed in your memo, it said that you had the roof assessed by a local contractor. A report was done detailing the deterioration areas of the roof. And so then, in looking at what Carr was going to do, it looked like they were going to be using that report as the basis of whatever they were going to do. And I was thinking to myself, do you really need to have an engineering firm involved to do a roof? Now, I don't know what's involved here, so with that caveat. And I assume the answer is yes, we do, but I'm just wondering if you have any other thought on that.
So
Because you got a report from a roofer, and it seemed like they're the ones who called attention to the issues and they knew how they were going to go and deal with it. And I haven't seen the report.
And yeah, so if we brought in 3 contractors, we may get 3 different opinions of how to put it back together because it is a unique structure. If this was a typical residential type of roof, we probably wouldn't need an architect's opinion and their level of specification on how to put it back together. But because we have the generic 4 pitches, and we have a flat, and we also have this little oddball other pitch in there. So there's a lot of different areas where different materials come together, and that's not the easiest thing to kind of put together for the lifetime you want out of a roof. So we wanted to kind of standardize the approach through an architect that does this day in and day out.
I don't recall, is this roof slate?
No, these are asphalt singles.
Asphalt.
Is there an attic in this building that you can see the interior?
Yes.
All right? Made your point?
Yep.
So we have a motion on the floor. Total project not to exceed 39,360. All those in favor? Aye. And again, it's unanimous. Carpet replacement.
My only question on the carpet replacement was whether we should be looking at an alternative like vinyl planking, which might have a longer life and be easier to clean.
Yeah. I keep seeing ads on television, it seemed to me for a lot less than 44 grand.
Well, the advantage of the vinyl planking, if you do the interlocking kind as opposed to the glue down kind, is that its commercial life is 20 years.
Yeah.
And if you damage one plank, you can replace the plank. I know on a project a couple of years ago, we did it and it was both cost-effective and very attractive.
And it's waterproof,
It's waterproof.
so
The carpet is quieter.
that's true. And probably
Yeah, it is
certain
quiet.
areas you could put down.
Yeah, you might
Sound
want to
deadening.
get carpet in a couple of offices and the vinyl planking where you got heavy traffic. I'm just throwing it out as an idea.
Yeah, I think we look into that. It's just this cover right out here. And it extends into the customer service offices and also into Dan's office.
So we didn't do a materials assessment, we tried to just keep it as an in-kind replacement to keep essentially the profiles as similar as possible, so we didn't have to deal with differing elevations and then potential more carpentry on top
I
of
don't
that.
think you'd have an elevation problem.
Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
we didn't look into it.
I think it's worth
But
looking into.
the product we are looking at is a tile product, so if we do have wear and tear, we will be able to do that patchwork that you referred to in the VCT.
The
And we answered
courses
all-
that I look into, we can look into different materials.
What do you want to do, folks? You want
I'd say
to
table
hold off
this.
on this, examine it
I make a
further?
motion, we table this item until next meeting when we can get a report back that says whether or not different materials would be valid.
Second.
Motion to table, those in favor, please say aye. Aye, it is done. Yeah. I cut everybody off because our motion to table says there's no more discussion. You have to handle it immediately. Okay, the reimbursement. What do I got? I missed something here, number 11?
We did
Oh, we took that, 12?
Only write-offs.
Okay. Table, okay. Quarterly write-off, everybody sees it. The net write-off was 0.26%. So I guess the tax collectors can eat their heart out in the cities. We do a lot better. We do better than, even though they can take a house, we do better than they do. All right, that brings us to executive session. What are we doing after executive session? Nothing, just vote to seal the minutes, and we'll take no action, and we'll adjourn the meeting. So our next board meeting will be September 22nd. We will go into executive session for litigation pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A2 and dealing with the minutes in executive session of 6:23 and 7:28. Motion to go into executive session at 16 minutes to 6. And all those in favor, raise your hand. It is unanimous. Okay, shut the... All right, we've come out of executive session. It is now 5:15, call it 5:58. Motion to seal the minutes. Moved and seconded. All those in favor of sealing the minutes of the executive session. And now a motion to dissolve our meeting. All those in favor. It is done. Thank you all.